we've been talking about visual interest from the beginning. This right here, over here, these lines, there's lots of visual interest here. If I add another radial blur to this smart object, I'm going to obliterate some of that. I would like to preserve it and yet still add another radial blur to see what happens. And the way to do that is to add a new layer icon, add a new layer, and then stamp visible. Now, there is nothing in the menu. There is nothing in these pull-out menus. There's no right click for this. The only way to do this is with the keyboard. Shift, Option, Command, E. Stamps visible. And if we look in history, you can see that's what it is. Now, that allows us to create a new smart object. We'll right-click off to the side and not make a clipping mask, but convert it to a smart object, and then apply the radial blur. Now, if you're doing this again and again and again and again and again, it's good to know the shortcut, because the last filter we used is a radial blur. And in order to apply that radial blur, there's Command F. Command F allows us to pull up this dialog box again. We can hit return to apply that. The radial blur is now being applied to a different smart object. Now, what this blur does to this is going to be the same as what it would have done down here. Got the camera raw filter also in play, but these pixels are preserved, and then we'll be able to cycle through the blending modes to see if there is one that kind of meets our needs. And I wish I would have peeked, because I did this in my tester. I think I chose luminosity for reasons that may or may not be apparent as soon as this is done. Now you see how this has blown out all that detail. And maybe you like this. Maybe you don't. But what happens if we change this blending mode? And I'm going to go down to luminosity just to see if that was in fact it. And doesn't look like it was. So the idea at this point is to check your blending modes and to see what works. Overlay's a little intense, soft light might be better. And let's pretend like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. Maybe lower the opacity down a little to let a little more of that shine through. And there we go. Am I done? You're never done. But experimenting with radial blurs to create visual, interesting backgrounds that are huge, 5,000 pixels square, will allow us to create potentially marketable products for MacLab Media. Play around with this. This can be a lot of fun. I will tell you, my experience shows that not all images work. Quite a few you think will work actually don't. Stick with it. Try different strategies. Try to identify what it is that works best. And I will continue this process as well and share my findings with you, as I hope you do with me. Have fun with this. Remember to save your work.